Good evening, my name is Joseph Frank and my address is 42 Woodbrook Way, Aston. I'm here before the board tonight because I live on and received a notice at my home from Conwego. Conwego is presently constructing at what used to be the gun range, as you all know. They left a notice that said that work will take place over the course of 10 nights for concrete placement. That the work will begin at approximately 2 a.m. during the months of June and July, and there will be 10 total nights of work within that time range. During that time, they are anticipating, I don't know how many trucks. I contacted our ward commissioner. I have spoken with the code enforcement officer. It's apparently anticipated that there's going to be a substantial number of trucks which will be taking part in this. It will continue from 2 a.m. until it is done, which, as I understand it, is expected to be throughout the entire night and will take place on 10 separate nights as they have indicated. The concrete trucks, by OSHA regulation, will all be equipped with those warning sounds because there is difficulty in seeing out the back, and if there's an obstructive view, they have to have it. Those warning beepers, according to the literature which I was able to find, indicate that they have a typical volume of 97 to 112 decibels. That's the warning. That does not include the noise which would be made by the concrete truck itself as it moves around with its load of concrete and mixes the concrete. That also does not include the noise which will be made by the other machinery which will be present in order to smooth the concrete and move the concrete around. It doesn't include the noise which will be made by the trucks and other individuals and the people who will be working at the site. There will also be lighting, I'm sure. As a matter of fact, they indicate that there will be what they call light plants. I don't know what a light plant is, but I anticipate that if you're going to pour concrete, you're going to have a well-lighted area because you're going to have to make sure no one can be hurt and that you can see that the concrete is going to the right place. So therefore, we can expect, I presume, a substantial amount of light to be shining as well in order for that to take place. The township's ordinances, specifically 1280.03 E regarding noise, provide where the receiving land use category is residential, public space, or open space, that from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. the maximum sound level is 60 decibels. That's capable of two interpretations. One interpretation would be that after 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. you can do whatever you want and make as much noise as you want, which I suggest would be unreasonable. And the other is that there's not to be noise from after 10 until 7, which is consistent with the fact that folks are sleeping then, so they can go to work the next day. Also, your ordinance in addition provides that if there is a source of sound which emits an impulsive sound of short duration, which shall not exceed 20 decibels over the ambient sound level. The ambient sound level at 2 o'clock in the morning is almost nil. All traffic is practically stopped. There's no one moving around doing anything. Therefore, 20 decibels would then violate the ordinance. Your ordinance also provides in subsection G that no vibration shall be produced which is transmitted through the ground and is discernible without the aid of instruments at or at any point beyond the lot line. Finally, your ordinance provides, God bless you, your ordinance provides in subsection I under public health and safety that no use shall create any other objectionable condition in an adjoining area which will endanger public health and safety or be detrimental to the public use of the surrounding area. I can tell you from experience, because the construction's been going on for a while, that if you sit in our home with all of the windows closed, and even if you run the air conditioner, you can still hear the sound of the beeping as it's going off from the backups. You can hear the sound of the vehicles moving around. That's difficult to deal with at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It will be impossible to deal with at 2 o'clock in the morning. It will mean that we won't sleep. It will mean that we'll be up throughout the night. I suggest to you that the township can take action and should take action in one of two forms. Either by having the township code officer advise that there will be a stop work order issued because the noise regulations have to be violated, because that 97 to 112 decibels alone from the warning will easily violate your ordinance. That's without any of the other noise which will be created. Also, between the light, the sound, what will be going on in the general congestion, you will certainly have something which interferes with the use of all the rest of us of our homes for sleeping between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. when they intend to stop. Therefore, I'm asking that you either request a code enforcement officer to advise that should that be done because it's in violation of the ordinances, that there will be a stop work order issued that will stop it, or that the township authorize its solicitor to proceed forward with an injunction action. This is something which is scheduled to take place not once, but on 10 separate nights. It will be a continuing course of conduct, which will make it impossible for all of us to sleep during that time. Since it is in violation of the township ordinance and it will be continuing over that period, you do have the basis to move forward to request an injunction. Therefore, I'm asking that the township would authorize its solicitor to move forward with an injunction action to prevent this from taking place, because it will be a continuing violation of the township ordinances over a period of at least 10 nights. We have no guarantee that it will last only 10 nights. They have said that it will be approximately 10 nights. If it's more than 10 nights, no one seems to know. I have spoken with our commissioner. I have spoken with the code enforcement officer. My neighbor, Mr. Zolkowski, has spoken directly with the individuals who are running the job. No one is able to tell us how many different nights in total it might be. What I've been told is that on Fridays, a schedule comes out for the following week. And until that time, we won't know. We do know that over the course of the next 2 months, we should expect this to happen at least 10 times. I would ask you to take into account that this is not something which anyone, I don't think, considered that there would be work being done between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. From having lived in this township most of my life, I know that contractors, landowners, individuals who do maintenance on lawns are aware that they shouldn't start before 7 a.m. and they're usually done well before 10 because of darkness. That's without even having read the ordinance. It was just something generally accepted and known. However, you have Conwego having announced to the township that it will violate the ordinance and that it will continue to violate the ordinance, and it will do so at least 10 times. And there's no guarantee it won't continue to do it more times than that. I suggest you that under the sections which I have cited to you of your ordinance, you have the grounds to stop the work and to seek an injunction to prevent it from going forward, because there is no adequate remedy simply by issuing a violation and charging a fine. The fine is a drop in the bucket to a project which is in the tens of millions of dollars. It will simply be a cost of doing business which they will pay, because it will be in the hundreds of dollars. Unless you take action as a township to prevent this from happening. We were at one point advised that we should contact the police. My neighbor spoke with the township police department. They are not trained in detecting sound. They are not trained in the use of sound meters, nor do they have sound meters. They indicated that if a police officer is called, they will of course come, they will take a report, and they will refer that report to the code enforcement officer. However, as far as I've been able to determine, there will be no one from the township who will be present during the hours that this will be done, since it will be being done between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Therefore, there will be no township official who could record on properly calibrated equipment that there was in fact a violation of the ordinance. Thus, the township would be in a difficult position to be even able to seek a fine for violation of the ordinance, because you have to prove the violation first. What we're asking is that you enforce your ordinance, that in the name of reasonableness, that you take action to stop them from pouring concrete between 2 and 6 in the morning. Perhaps there could be a negotiation with the individuals to try to arrive at some compromise that everyone could accept. 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is not reasonable. My understanding is that the contractor's position is essentially they're going to do it when they say they're going to do it, and that's it. And they're not going to be told they won't do it. No individual such as myself has the ability to stop them. However, if the Township Board of Commissioners as a board contacts them, explains their violations, and request to talk with them, I would think they would respond. Could attempt to negotiate a compromise that might not involve 2 to 6, or if the matter's brought before the court and the court issues an injunction, that will stop them. It's also been my experience that when that happens, a judge will normally attempt to broker a compromise and to find a way that everyone can live with. I would suggest to you that those are the ways you should pursue. And what I would ask is if we can get some sense of the board as to whether, in fact, the board intends to take any action. In talking with our commissioner, I first learned of this in the week immediately after Memorial Day, between 5:31 and 6:04, when this was dropped off at my door. And I spoke that day to our commissioner. He advised me that he had been dealing with the problem for several weeks. I therefore understand that the board was apparently aware of the matter sometime since mid-May. I am not aware of the board having taken any action during that period of time, and it has now been approximately a month which has gone by. If you will be seeking injunctive relief, I think your solicitor would tell you that time is of the essence and that you need to move quickly in order to do that. I'm not sure then why the board has not done anything for the last 30 days, but I am asking that the board take immediate action tonight in order to authorize your solicitor to move forward to seek to stop this, and in order to authorize the code enforcement officer, and I think in fairness, to advise the contractor ahead of time that the code enforcement officer will be stopping work if they're in violation of the township ordinances, so that they can have the opportunity to attempt to find a time when they can do that. They presently work at that site from 7 a.m., and there have been days when they have begun before 7 a.m., and they work until at least 6 or 7 o'clock. I've heard them out there as late as 9 o'clock, still working. But as long as they work not past 10, I believe they qualify within the noise ordinance. However, once they're there after 10, they are violating the township's noise ordinance. Therefore, what we're asking is that the township enforce its ordinance and take action to stop this.
Brett, you got anything?
Joe knows how I feel about it. We talked. Being in my ward, I understand where they're coming from. I've talked to the board here about it, so I think I'd be better off handing this over to Beth. I mean, she knows more of the legal end of it than I do.
All right, well, thank you for your comments. We'll take it under advisement and discuss the matter.
Given the shortness of time which is available, sir, since they've indicated they will do this during July, they indicated that this would be done during July and August, and therefore, or I'm sorry, actually in the months of June and July, so that we should expect it to be imminent, that it may begin. Can I ask when the board will be deciding what action to take in order to move forward, because we are now already at mid-June, and I would think therefore we should expect this to begin almost any day.
We have been discussing this matter, and at this point, I mean, we were assured that, you know, the residents' interest would be taken into consideration. What you're bringing up, I'm just telling you what we were told. Okay, all right. What you're bringing up tonight is something that we just heard, and it's a matter that we need to discuss, and we're not going to do that publicly.
Hey,
Can I ask
Mr. Gog, could we ask Beth to address what he said about the legal end of it, though? Because that's where we've been with this.
That's for the solicitor.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if she wants to, I mean, it's up to you what you want to do with this.
Well, yes, this is an issue that's been discussed. It is an ongoing conversation. We've been working with the code enforcement officer as to the best ways to handle it. There are obviously more issues than just the ones that you've raised here tonight. There are mechanisms in place for when the work begins. A decision was made not to file a preliminary injunction because there's insufficient evidence at this point. The township does not have sufficient evidence to prove what you're saying would happen. There really needs to be proof. We can't go into court and shut down a multi-million-dollar project based upon an anticipated violation, which may or may not occur. So unless and until something happens, the township really isn't in the right position to be taking that sort of effort. I mean, we've got the township's money to take into consideration and what's in the best interest of the entire community. So we're watching. There are processes in place with the code enforcement as to how they're going to handle it once this work begins. The township's been aware of it from the very beginning. They're the ones that Commissioner Prendergast is the one that when we first found out that this was going to happen, he said to them, you need to be good neighbors. So out of the gate, he was saying, you need to be good neighbors with these residents, and you need to communicate with them, and you need to work with them. And that's why you got the notice. And we're going to continue to watch it. This isn't something that's being ignored. As Commissioner Prendergast has really, been pretty upset about this, understandably, because he's being your advocate. So, we're gonna, from a legal point of view, until I've got evidence that I can put a witness on the stand, and I've got documentation as to those violations and what those levels are gonna be, there's really nothing we can do at this point.
Well, respectfully, Conwego has already told us what they intend to do, and they have placed it in writing. And I would be happy, of course, to provide the solicitor with a copy of this, in which they have indicated what they will be doing. Certainly that will involve multiple concrete trucks being used. I've been told it has been described as a massive pour in the explanations to the township. That will then, with the use of the beepers alone, which according to internet literature provide 97 to 112 decibels, would exceed the number of decibels which are permitted.
Mr. Brankett, you know darn well that I can't go into court and say that my internet research tells me that it's going to violate our township ordinances.
I understand that, but I do understand that you have access to an engineer who has experience in this area, and I would imagine that your engineer would be able to give testimony, given his experience in construction, as to the use of these warning devices, as to the level of the warning devices. If necessary, a sound engineer could be contracted for by the township in order to testify as to what the level is that is given by one of the warning devices. I understand you would need those things in order to bring the action, but what I'm suggesting is that the township should, at this point, attempt to do that, because if the township waits, and this is to take place in June and July, then as we both know, it will reach a point where, from a time standpoint, it will simply be impossible in order to prepare a complaint, file a complaint, provide for there to be a hearing on the temporary injunction, which would be requested in time to stop it. It will all be finished before that process could be completed, really, reasonably. That's why I'm suggesting that the township authorize their solicitor to retain the necessary experts. I would think that you would probably need a sound engineer in addition to the township engineer, that perhaps in addition to that, there may be some other experts who would be needed. That process would have to be begun immediately, because that's not something which would be done immediately. You can't retain those experts in a day. And that's why I'm asking that the township would move forward at this time, as opposed to simply waiting for the first violation to occur. And then at that point, you place your solicitor in a position where, from a timeline, I don't know how she's possibly going to prepare a complaint and have it heard before the other nights take place, since it's predicted to be in June and July.
Again, you brought up, we have to talk about this a little further. That's all I can say right now, because what you're telling us is new to us. We've been hearing other things from the contractor, so we'll take this under advisement.
Thank you.